Okay, so by 1980, you graduate from Harvard
Yes.
with a physics degree.
Physics.
And you go to University of Texas at Austin.
Yes.
Why leave the Ivy League system at that point?
Well, so you go to who takes you. I applied to Harvard. They didn't take me
Really?
for graduate school.
Okay.
Right. Actually, there are two reasons why they might not take you. One of them, they just don't want you. Another one is it's actually better to go to a whole other institution where you have new faculty, new research programs. So it's genetically healthier to diversify your exposure than to stay in one place for 8 or 10 years, because that's what it would be. 4 years as an undergraduate, another 5 or 6. I was accepted at UT Austin. They own their own observatory in West Texas, the McDonald Observatory, nothing to do with the burgers. And that's where I met my wife, who was getting a PhD in mathematical physics at UT Austin. Right.
Okay, so you get your master's in astronomy.
Yes.
At Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And then by 88, you go to Columbia.
Yeah, so I transferred graduate programs. Things weren't working out with my advisor. That's the thing about graduate school relative to undergraduate. Undergraduate, there's a book and there's an exam and there's a syllabus and you do all of that and you get through. Graduate school, there's a whole other social dynamic that has to work in order for it to work at all. And this is your committee, your advisor, and the like. And there were elements there where it was clear I wasn't fitting in. And so generally, if you don't fit in, you do get the master's, but then you move on. You either leave the field, as many people do when things don't work out. But I was deep in, and so I transferred graduate programs to Columbia University, where I was warmly embraced, and I finished my PhD there.
Well, I guess it's around the same time, something interesting happened in 1989. So you were speaking to someone about what you were focused on. And when you said astrophysics, they said the Black community can't afford the luxury of someone with your intellect to spend it on that subject.
Okay, let me clarify the timeline on that. That conversation took place in 1978.
Oh, okay, my bad.
Okay, no. But I know where you're landed there, and I'll tighten that up. So that happened while I was in college. I was wrestling, and I was on the wrestling team as a first love of sport, by the way. It's funny how others, they'd see me play basketball. Oh, why don't you go play basketball? I said, no, I'd prefer to wrestle. No, but you should play basketball. Again, it's what have you seen in your life?
I wrestled in high school too.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Oh yeah, it
cool.
actually saved my life at one point.
Yeah, all right.
That's a different story.
Yeah, wrestling, it's a thing.
It's a thing.
It's a
Definitely
thing.
a thing, yeah.
It's totally a thing. So a fellow wrestler of mine 2 years ahead of me, but we're the same weight category. So we're rolling around all the time with each other. We're walking out of the practice room, and that's when he hands me that line. He said, what are you majoring in again? Astrophysics. He said, the Black community cannot afford the luxury of someone with your intellect becoming an astrophysicist. He was majoring in economics. And I think he became a Rhodes Scholar or something and would go research enterprise zones in the inner cities and all of this. And so that was a very heavy emotional burden he put on me, that one sentence. Because I knew intellectually he's correct, but emotionally, it's not what I felt. Emotionally, I love the universe. I want to study the universe.
Why would you feel intellectually that is correct?
Because the Black community still had a long way to go in terms of advances in our culture, in our civilization, in our today we'd call it diversity, equity, and inclusion, phrases that didn't exist back then, but that's what we knew was necessary and not yet achieved. And if I could find some way, and I was socialized, so if I could find some way to do like what my father did and try to bring some sense of justice to the world, but here I am, the astrophysicist. And so fast forward, so this is a burden. I'm feeling this all throughout graduate school, okay? Throughout the rest of college, and it's there. It's like this albatross weighing me down on my neck. And, well, I haven't referenced the albatross, the rhyme of the ancient mariner, the albatross. But anyhow, this anvil around my neck, thinking about it. And it was not until 1989 that I climbed out of that hole.
Right. And that was when you had an interview about a plasma burst from the sun on Fox.
Yes. Yes. That's before there was the official Fox News network. It was Fox 5, local news, but it was Channel 5 in New York, which is Fox. Right. It was Fox.
Right. And they asked you about this plasma burst, which you answered because you're an astrophysicist. And you had a quote. You said, "I'd never before in my life seen an interview with a black person on television for expertise that had nothing to do with being black."
I came to that realization after I went home because the interview was pre-recorded. And I go back, I call everybody. Mom, Dad says, "I'm going to be on TV. Check it out." And I'm eating dinner and I'm watching the evening news. And there's this interview with the weatherman, because that's the only person typically who knows any science in the cast, in the newscast, among the newscasters. And so he didn't ask me, well, how do black people feel about plasma explosions on the sun? Right. Do the rays affect black people differently from white? None of that. There was no racial reference at all in that conversation. All he was after was my expertise. This happened while I was still in graduate school, wearing my one tie and my one jacket. And I realized if I'd never seen that before, what had I seen? It must be, if you have a black person on being interviewed, it's because they're an entertainer and you want to find out their next gig, or it's an athlete, you want to find out, or it's a preacher talking about inner city economic opportunity. The idea of a black person being an expert on something that had nothing to do with being black, I think was transitional in that era, over those years. Because afterwards I said, surely some other black people were interviewed for expertise. And so let me focus on it now. Maybe I just missed it. I spent 3 years after that monitoring and checking this out, okay? And nope, none of them.
Well, yeah, you said at that point I realized that one of the last stereotypes that prevailed among people who carry stereotypes is that sort of black people are somehow dumb.
Yeah, dumber than white people, for sure. Yeah, because if you're a white person, you can't, back then especially, you can't grok the possibility that a black person is smarter than you in every way. You're not allowed to have that thought, given how you're trained and given what you're exposed to.
Yeah.
From way back, you had Step and Fetch It as a character in TV shows, and other sort of slow, dim-witted black people portrayed in pop culture. Yeah. Right on through cartoons and the like. So, yeah, this was I realized this was the last bastion.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy kind of changed that. I remember reading this old interview. He said that until he started doing movies like Beverly Hills Cop, the black guy was always the, "Where are we going, boss? Let me fumble behind the white guy." Whereas Beverly Hills Cop was, the black guy was the star. He was the smartest guy in the room. The white people are all fumbling behind him. And it sort of changed the narrative in Hollywood in a way. But that was the 80s.
Yeah, that was the 80s. But also, Richard Pryor was in several films that, a really brilliant actor, by the way, undervalued for his acting. He was in several films. And this is a point I will make that will bring a nuance to what you just said. As you may know, Beverly Hills Cop was scripted just for a Detroit police officer, and it didn't specify that he be black. And that, in fact, Sylvester Stallone was considered for that role.
Really?
Yes.
I had no
They just
idea.
needed kind of a renegade, kind of not the prim and proper person. So Eddie Murphy gets the role. That's why, except in one spot, there is no reference to him being black anywhere in the script.
Right. That was the Michael Jackson hotel.
At the hotel. Right. Exactly. Oh, he makes the scene about how they treat black people and then they accommodate him. That was clearly a one-off, and it was not necessary to make the film happen. And they put it in there because he is Eddie Murphy, and he likes doing that, right? So that's an example. And in most of the Richard Pryor films, including, consider Blue Collar, very underrated film, oh my gosh, about Detroit and unions and power structures. He's in roles that had nothing to do with being black. And the third Academy Award to go to a black actor after Hattie McDaniel and
Gone
Gone with the Wind, and Sidney Poitier in Lilies of the Field or Valley, what, Lilies, the Lilies movie. That Lilies movie, again, except for one script reference, made no reference to him being black. He was simply an itinerant architect, all right, a wandering architect to help these nuns in whatever is the needs of their facility. There's one scene in a hardware store where they throw in a race reference. That's it. You take that out, he is just another actor in that role. Okay. The third one was Lou Gossett Jr. in Officer and a Gentleman, and there is no script reference to him being black. When there could have been, because this is evil drill instructor, you could have people uttering all kinds of racial epithets, but that never happened. The point is, the moment you say you're a black person, I want to cast you as a black person, I'm going to ask you black people questions, you have ghettofied the interaction. If I'm a black scientist to you, then I'm not actually a scientist to you.
Yeah.
You have
asterisk by your name. Yeah.
you have constrained who and what I can be in your mind by even assigning that label.
Yeah, I remember you did an interview recently where you talked about some of the, the racist things that people have said about black people and monkeys and so forth. But you said when you actually scientifically look at white people, monkeys are hairy. White people are the hairiest people
on Earth.
I am really hairy. Like, no, seriously.
I don't shave.
No, I shave I'm shaving now.
I
got hair on my back.
Coming up
my chest is all hairy.
The hair coming up
hair on my ears.
Collar. Okay.
These
were highly overlooked similarities.
Yeah, the big ears. White people usually have big ears.
Bigger ears around.
Monkeys have thin lips. White people, I have thin lips.
Yes.
So really, I look more like a monkey than anyone else. But then there's the whole racist stereotype that to this day still goes.
The 19th century anthropologist is probably the most racist period in the most racist branch of science there ever was. And it's evident by the moment you start categorizing people and then ranking them, well, you're going to rank yourself at the top. And that will deeply bias you for what you look for and what you cite as evidence to support your biased view. And you don't even think you have a biased view. But these biased views fed the entire eugenics movement. The eugenics movement was let's purify the human race by preventing the undesirables from mating, right? And forced sterilization, all of this. Yeah. A little known fact is the eugenics movement, which was big in the United States in the 1910s and 20s, fed the philosophies of Adolf Hitler as he rose up in the 30s. But we want to distance ourselves from him. Why wouldn't you? But if you actually part the curtains, there's the intersection of what race is superior and what race isn't. And that is foundational to Hitler's writings, and it was foundational to the eugenics movement.
Yeah, I mean, when I
but in the comparisons go on.
Yeah.
In the book that I wrote, I say, I didn't just come up with I said to myself, suppose the 19th century had racist black anthropologists. Let's just turn the tables. Let's make them racist and see what they would come up with. Huh. Of course, they'd have to put themselves at the top and now find all the similarities between white people and chimpanzees. And it start with the fully hairy bodies, the huge ears, I have big ears. And the person who wants, look at my ear here. How big is that?
Pretty small.
All right. Yeah. And people say, well, how about Obama? He's the first black president and he's got big ears. He's exactly half white.
Well, he's probably
we call him a black president.
Well, his dad comes from Africa.
He's
mom
exactly
is totally white. He's exactly half white. Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
No doubt those big ears come from his mama. Okay? So the point is, I'm just saying, look how easy it is to be racist.
Right.
And take a look at a chimpanzee's lips. They're razor thin. All right? And we've got some very famous large-lipped black people, Jay-Z among them. All right? I don't have small lips. So they overlooked so much.
Yeah.
Okay. I got to add one just while you went there. So I'm going to add one.
Let's go.
Do you know lice outbreaks are 30 times more likely in white people than in black people.
Really?
The lice just don't enjoy black hair.
Okay.
For whatever reasons,
Whatever
it is 30 times more likely. Okay, if you put lice in the hair, it'll want to go to the white people's hair. You ever see chimpanzees pruning each other?
Oh yeah, they pick the
They're
lice
picking out the lice, and
right.
apparently lice is tasty because they eat it. So this is a huge exercise. And anyhow, it goes on and on. The fact that you have likely never seen black children walk by a tree and say, I want to build a house in that tree and live there. Okay, this is like a suburban white kid thing. All right. And so that racist black anthropologist would say, these are just white people wanting to return to their roots in the trees. Okay. Look how easy it is to be a racist.
Easy,
you could totally do it.
Oh yeah. I mean, for example, like when Kanye says that he loves Hitler, I don't think he realized that during the Nazi reign of Germany, that mixed kids were actually sterilized because Hitler did not want them muddling up his perfect race.
Yep.
Kanye has 4 mixed kids. You have mixed kids. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it's just sort of like the ignorance when you don't really know the knowledge and the history allows you to say dumb things like, I love Hitler as a black man. Thinking that somehow Hitler wouldn't have killed him if he had the chance.
Yes.
Right.
Or enslaved them or whatever. Yeah.
Or whatever, exactly.
Các bạn tham khảo thêm nhé các bạn. Rồi, bây giờ thầy nói nè, phương trình dao động điều hòa x bằng 5 cos 2pt cộng pi trên 3. Hãy cho biết biên độ, tức là cho biết A là bao nhiêu nè. Pha ban đầu, tức là hỏi phi là bao nhiêu nè. Pha tại thời điểm t, tức là hỏi nguyên cái góc này nè. Đúng không ạ? Như vậy mình trả lời biên độ so sánh với cái phương trình tổng quát nha. X bằng A cos omega t cộng phi. Như vậy biên độ A của chúng ta là 5 cm. Trước hàm cos là biên độ, đúng không ạ? So sánh dưới này là 5. Rồi pha ban đầu là phi là hệ số tự do của cái góc này nè. Nó là pi trên 3. Pha tại thời điểm t là nguyên cái góc này luôn, tức là bằng 2 pi t cộng với pi trên 3. Đó là xong. Đúng không ạ? Đó là xong cái nội dung câu số 4. Tiếp tục chúng ta qua câu số 5. Một chất điểm dao động điều hòa có phương trình ly độ như màn hình của các bạn quan sát đây. Người ta yêu cầu mình tính quãng đường vật đi được sau 2 dao động là bao nhiêu. Đúng không ạ? Thì các bạn chú ý một cái điều này cho thầy. Trong một chu kỳ dao động, đúng không? Xin lỗi, trong một dao động thì vật sẽ thực hiện được một quãng đường là 4A. Được chưa? Trong một dao động thì vật thực hiện được quãng đường là 4A. Thầy giả sử như đây. Ví dụ như đây là vị trí cân bằng, đây là biên dương, đây là biên âm. Ban đầu giả sử như vật, thầy giả sử như ban đầu nó đang ở vị trí biên dương đi, nó di chuyển về vị trí cân bằng, nó di chuyển tới biên âm. Đây chính là 1/2 dao động, 1/2 dao động. Tiếp tục tới biên âm rồi, đúng không ạ? Nó đi về vị trí cân bằng, đi tới biên dương,